Imagine waking up Monday morning and discovering that access to your company's most important AI platform has been completely cut off. Not because of a system outage, not because of a credit card failure, but because of your passport.
Yeah, exactly. Not your security clearance, not even where your company's incorporated, but literally where you were born. For decades, software's been this beautiful, borderless thing. If you're a developer in Sydney, New York, or Tokyo, you use the same APIs, the same GitHub repos, the same cloud tools. It's just code, flowing free as water. But what happens when governments stop treating artificial intelligence like software and start treating it like a strategic national asset, like enriched uranium or satellite networks?
They will contain it. Historically, every transformative technology reaches a threshold where the state must intervene. It's not about commercial market dynamics anymore, it is about sovereign survival. Once a system transitions from a productivity tool to national infrastructure, the borderless illusion dissolves.
Crikey, it's a massive shift, isn't it? It's like building a nice sunny backyard deck and suddenly finding out the council has declared it a military outpost.
That is a very Lachlan analogy. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Simon Carver, and with me, as always, is Lachlan Reed. And we are incredibly fortunate to have our guest host back today, physicist and systems strategist Jack Burns. Jack, great to have you here.
Thank you, Simon. It is good to be here to dissect this.
Before we plunge into the geopolitical deep end, a quick reminder to our listeners. If you're enjoying these deep dives, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Share this episode with a colleague who's trying to make sense of the future, and check out The Human Workforce. Your support keeps these conversations going. Now, Jack, you mentioned sovereign survival. Why are intelligence agencies suddenly hyperventilating about these frontier models? Surely they've seen advanced software before.
But they have never seen this kind of velocity. In cybersecurity, we rely on what we call end-day vulnerabilities. When a security flaw is discovered, a clock starts ticking. A software company might take weeks to build a patch. Then IT teams take more weeks to deploy it. Attackers are trying to exploit it. But human defenders have a runway. Time is the defender's primary shield.
Right, but now we're talking about frontier models that can look at a security patch, reverse engineer the original vulnerability, and generate a fully functional exploit in, what, minutes? Seconds?
Precisely, the defensive timeline collapses to zero. If a machine can analyze, weaponize, and attack at machine speed, human-in-the-loop governance fails. The advantage shifts entirely to the offense. If a foreign adversary possesses an exclusive model with that capability, it's not a commercial advantage, it is an asymmetrical threat to your power grid, your financial networks, your defense systems.
Wow. So the software is no longer just helpful, it's actively dangerous in the wild. And that's why governments are building what we call the sovereign sandbox, restricting who can build them, who can run them, and who can even query them.
And this is where we see a massive clash of cultures. You've got Silicon Valley on one hand, where they look at AI as an optimization problem. They're trying to reduce hallucination rates from, say, 2% down to 0.5%. They're looking at average failure rates. But the security agencies? They don't care about the average.
Correct. They focus on consequence, not probability. In physics, we look at boundary conditions. If an AI model functions perfectly 99.9% of the time, but the 0.1% failure mode involves the autonomous disruption of a regional energy grid, the system is fundamentally unsafe for deployment. Silicon Valley optimizes for the norm. Governments govern for the catastrophe.
And that means the era of the single, global cloud API is probably coming to an end. We're heading toward a fragmented world of competing national digital ecosystems. Sovereign sandboxes. You'll have the US sandbox, the EU sovereign cloud, regional models with strict jurisdictional boundaries.
Talk about a compliance earthquake for businesses. I mean, imagine you're a multinational company. You spent 3 years integrating a US-based frontier model into your code pipelines, your customer service, your legal reviews. Then suddenly, new export controls drop. Your developers in Europe or Asia are legally locked out of the model overnight. What do? You can't just fall back on pen and paper.
You must build for redundancy. Every enterprise strategy must transition from how do we use AI to be faster to how do we ensure our AI architecture is geopolitically resilient. If your operations rely on a single centralized model hosted in a foreign jurisdiction, you have a single point of failure that you do not control.
It really forces us to redefine what we mean by the human workforce. It's not just about humans working alongside machines. It's about recognizing that these machines are governed by very human, very national interests.
Spot on, Simon. The big question for leaders today isn't what can this AI do, it's who owns the ground it's running on, and can they pull the plug on us tomorrow?
Sovereignty always trumps efficiency. Once the rules of the game change, those who rely on borderless assumptions will find themselves stranded.
A sober but absolutely necessary reality check to close on. Thank you, Jack, for bringing that analytical lens. And thank you, Lachlan. To all our listeners, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode, share this with your team, and visit us at The Human Workforce to keep exploring how to show your humanity at work in an increasingly complex world. Until next time, take care.
See you next time, guys. Keep your chin up.
Goodbye, everyone.